This is Dr. Drake. Thank you so much for being with me tonight on the Business Edge on Tan Talk. If you'd like to call in, our number here is 1-866-826-1340. Again, if you want to call in, the number here is 866-826-1340. And this is Dr. Drake on the Business Edge. Well, for those of you who are tuning in late, we're running a little mini series. 2 weeks ago, we talked about multi-level marketing and pyramid scams. Last week, we talked about employment scams. I guess scams are just the theme with me lately because I decided that this week we needed to tackle scams that are leveled against business owners and businesses. After all, we are a business show. So again, all these scams, and we're looking at an increasing number of scams right now because of the economy. And as I've been saying all along on this show, the economy is not getting better. I'd love to tell you differently, and I'd love to be one of those people that gives you great news. Yes, we're going to do phenomenal this year. We're coming out of it. Unemployment numbers are down, but that's just not true. And I think that more than anything else, we need to deal with what is true on the business edge and how we work around it, how we work with it. Being in denial does no one any good. So that's one of the reasons we're dealing with these scams right now is the economy is just not where it should be, and people are desperate for hope. They're looking for any kind of opportunity. And, of course, this is when the crooks are just, at their best. They take advantage of people who are hoping for the best, wishing for the best. And, of course, there's more incentive to be a crook. These people don't have the jobs that perhaps they had at one time, and they're looking to make money any way they can. Our producer, Mike, wants to weigh in. Go ahead,
Well, just
Mike.
Speaking of crooks, it is an election year. So, yes, definitely the crooks in Washington are really
gearing
on
up.
it.
And they're the ones that are saying, what a great economy we have. Oh, yeah, it's marvelous, isn't it? We all can tell. It's just we're just doing so well.
And old Slick Willie's sitting back going, I bet you guys miss me now.
And I bet we do. I tell you what, we are definitely hurting as a nation. And although I try to avoid talking about politics, we would be fools to want the country to continue in the vein that it has been in the last 4 years. Now, whether you think that the answer is voting for Romney or doing something about Obama, if you believe that Obama is actually going to change when he has no incentive to change if he is reelected, because, of course, at that point, he can't be reelected a third term, so his last term, he can do whatever he pleases. If you think that he's a good shot, then vote for Obama. But whatever the case is, we know that the last 3.5 years, what has been happening has not been working for us, right? Well, Crooks are on the rise. We see all kinds of crime on the rise. In my own neighborhood, which at one time was a decent neighborhood. I mean, it wasn't one of those high-end gated communities, but it was a decent neighborhood. And now we see homeless people wandering through. We had a spate of home break-ins. We had car break-ins. Which, by the way, to my surprise, turns out to be a felony. Even if your car is unlocked, if somebody goes into your car, that is a felony, period. Anyways, we have had a ton of these break-ins, and it's not considered to be a bad neighborhood. And I'm just surprised to see the rise in crime. And I've spoken to people in the police department, and they said, yes, this is the case everywhere. It's just not getting better. So now crooks, of course, are going to be more inventive than ever. They're not going to just want to break into your car. They're going to want to break into your bank account. They're going to want to have access to your things, your property, and it's up to you to be especially on your guard right now. Well, businesses are another target, and sometimes it's easier for them to target a business because business owners aren't thinking just as an individual. For one thing, a business owner is busy. They're running in all different directions. Their people are busy. Nobody's sitting there looking for the latest scam. They don't have time to analyze and think, what's this guy's angle? And with the workplace being in constant flux and people assuming different hats, there are more layoffs now. There are more firings. One person now may be doing the work of many. So they're going to even be less able to spot some of the things that are going on because it's really not their area of expertise. They're just filling in for the person who was just fired. So right now, businesses may be especially vulnerable to fraud. Some of the frauds are, of course, check scams. Oh, my goodness. I used to own a hair salon. And my salon manager, I found out, after everything happened, actually was training some of the staff members on how to be thieves, how to cook the books, and if there are a number of employees that are working on taking you for what they can, it will happen unless you are on top of it at all times. What about the employees that can take a picture of your checkbook? And all of a sudden, they don't need your actual business checks. They can make copies themselves, because anybody can go to a store and buy Micker ink, which is the magnetic ink that they use in these checks, and duplicate your checks to a T. There was a woman from a bank recently speaking. I went to hear her talk, and she was talking about how not too long ago they had a business that was taken in exactly that way. An employee had taken a picture of the check and then had turned around and duplicated the check, but just changed the name of the business, and the checks were going right through. Nothing was stopping it. And when I mentioned this to my producer, Mike brought something interesting up that he's incorporated in his company to put a stop to this kind of thing. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, there's several banks are actually enrolling their clients in something called positive pay. What happens is that the client actually has to log on to a website, and they have to authorize each check that goes through. And also, too, at the end of the day, what they'll do is submit a data file that has all the checks that they cut for the day, and they upload it to the bank's website. Of course, there'll be secure connection and everything like that, but everything has to match up. If it doesn't, the bank does not authorize payment on the checks.
What a good system, and something that if I had done it in my salon, I could have put an immediate stop to what happened to me, because in my case, they weren't even clever enough to take pictures of the checks. They didn't need to be bright. All they had to do is just access a check here or there, and I was so busy, as most small business owners are aware, that one or two slipped by me, and that's all that needed to slip by me. And they were smart enough, this particular manager was smart enough not to write the check for too much money. And it was an odd number, like 132.80.
Sure, so it flies below the radar. Yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't as flat $500. And so when I finally caught him, and I finally reported it to the bank even refused to prosecute, because it was a small amount, chump change, and they just said, let it go. And at that point, if the bank wasn't going to prosecute, the police wouldn't prosecute, and the bank refunded my money, but it allowed this guy to go on to further another life of crime, which I won't go into here, but he did continue in his life of crime and affected other businesses as a result of it, which I heard about later on. These things could have been prevented and weren't, but of course the key here is it's really easy to get into your banking account when you are a business owner. So be very careful who gets to look at your checks. And I even had another business owner talk about how somebody had gotten into the mailbox and had seen a copy of the check, made a copy of it, and did the same thing. So you have to watch your mail going out, your mail going in. Know what your bills are. Know who is getting a look at your checks. Keep an eye on everything. Be very, very cautious. I wish I could tell you otherwise. It's just so easy to take it for granted and assume everybody's as honest as you are, but that's just not the way the world works. And we know that, or the prisons wouldn't be full, would they? So just one of those things to be prepared for. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say also, one of the biggest problems I think that business owners have to face is inventory control.
Oh, yes.
Employee theft of inventory. Oh. There are different types of, actually, I don't know if you've ever heard of like Gordon Graham. It's inventory control principles on how to keep track of your inventory, figuring out where it is, making sure to at least cut your losses, as far as, employee theft. A lot of companies now actually do something called cycle counting, where each night they actually count a certain portion of their inventory. So you're going through your inventory as far as counting at least once a quarter.
Which
as opposed to doing it once a year, because then when you do it once a year, all of a sudden you're like, well, we're like $100,000 off. Where did it go? Well, you don't know, because you can't narrow it down.
Right. And another thing, speaking of employee theft, is especially if you're in a high cash industry, like hair salons, which I owned a hair salon, and that's where all the nightmare began for me. But there are other industries too, restaurant industry. When you're dealing with a lot of cash, There's a reason the IRS audits them, it turns out, which, of course, is something I was completely ignorant of at the time. But when there's a lot of cash, there's always opportunity for a lot of other things to go wrong. And employees love to pocket it. I'd like to tell you that employees are basically good people, but when there's an opportunity, many people will take advantage of that opportunity. And in this case, one thing that I had happen in my salon was one day the credit card machine just magically went down, and my manager had a sign up saying that it was cash only. They wouldn't even accept checks because, of course, the credit machine was down and the check cashing card machine was down. Well, what do you know? So it was cash only. Where did the cash go? Wow, I had a very slow day that day. When I looked at the books, I was amazed at how few transactions went on until I found out later that it was a cash-only day. Oh, no, he was doing great business. Again, if you're a business owner, you better keep an eye on things, because I tell you what, just one day where it's one of those credit card machine down days and the cash is going straight into their pockets. Again, would like to not be the bearer of bad tidings, but that is the way it works, folks. Well, what about outside of the employees? I mean, what are you looking at outside of the employees? How can scams get to the average business owner? How can they get into your account if they're not actually on your premises working there for you? Well, it's really not that hard. There's all kinds of scams out there. One is a prepay shipping scam. Say you're a company and you are selling a lot of heavy merchandise. And by heavy, I don't mean like the 60s. Hey, that's heavy, dude. No, I mean heavy, like furniture, right? Or steel girders. Okay, so this guy calls in, and a lot of times, by the way, they'll call in from a TTY service. TTY operators are the operators that are a translation service. They call on behalf of people who are deaf and not able to communicate on the phone, and so they translate for you. So if you want to call somebody who's deaf, you call through a TTY service. If somebody is deaf and they want to place an order, they will also call through that TTY service. So you're dealing with a third party who's in between. Well, the TTY operators are actually not usually part of the scam, but it makes it so much easier for a call, say, from Somalia to come into you, and you don't know where that call is coming from. Therefore, you're not on your guard, you're not suspicious, you're assuming that they're calling from where they say they're calling from, such as Georgia. So this TTY operator calls you, you already feel bad for the guy, he's got a disability, and he wants to order 1,000, well, no, let's be realistic. He wants to order some very, very heavy, large pieces of furniture. He's ordering an entire house from you, not just the bedroom suite, but the dining room set and the whole kit and caboodle. So, you're really nice, this guy. It's a big sale, and you have no reason to be suspicious. And there's going to be a hefty amount of shipping to get that up to Georgia. So you give him the total. And he says, okay, that's great. No problem at all. He uses a stolen credit card to give you all of the information that you need to be able to process the sale. And he says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and buy all this from you, but can you at least prepay the shipping for me? I'm giving you this huge order. Prepay the shipping to this P.O. box. You agree to do that, and you're out the shipping costs and sometimes out the merchandise, depending on how the scam works. The key is don't ship to any buyers on a prepaid basis unless they're established with you, and you better be really sure who they are. And of course, there's also something similar to that, which is the overpayment. It's one of those systems. I talked about this in the employment scams last week, and this is the same type of scam as the employment scam where they tell you that you need to help them out. They'll send you a check up front, and the check is usually $500 or $1,000 or even more over what they should pay, and they're like, my mistake, can you just cash that cashier's check and send me back the money? Well, the difference. So say you get $1,000 and they really only owe you $500. So you cash the cashier's check, send them back the $500, and you think, that's sweet, I got my $500 up front. Well, the cashier's check is fraudulent. It bounces. You have to pay the bounce check fees, and you're out $1,000, right? So you're at least out $500, and you're also out the money that you thought you were getting paid. It's a nightmare. Well, Now, how do you do that with a business? Well, these scammers are great with businesses. I had a real estate broker just recently speak of this deal that he put through This guy called him from out of town. He had no idea that this guy was one of those, Nigerian scams. He only found out later on where the guy was from. And the guy made all these arrangements to rent this nice house that the guy had up on the internet. So when it all came down, they signed everything. It was ready to go, and the guy sent him a cashier's check. And say the rent was, $1,500 a month. Well, the guy sent him $3,000. And then he called and he's like, "Oh, my mistake. I really didn't mean to send you $3,000. That was the entire amount that I've been allocated from my company for all my expenses. And of course, as you said, it was only $1,500 a month. So I'm giving you that $1,500 now. Can you just go ahead and cash it out and just send me back that other $1,500? Luckily, the real estate guy was like, that doesn't sound right. Looked into it, and the company had never heard of this guy. But if he hadn't checked into it, he would have been out another $1,500. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just tell him to stop payment on the check. That's all.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what he had to do. He had to put a whole stop to the whole thing. But it was a nightmare waiting to happen. And it can happen with product, too. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we're back, we're going to talk more about some of these scams that are targeting businesses. This is Dr. Drake, and you are listening to The Business Edge. And this is Dr. Drake, my dear friend, Dr. Paul, who will be coming up in another hour for you. He does the Dr. Paul show on this station. He pointed out that I sounded a little gloom and doom. Well, he's right. I did sound gloom and doom, and that's because I firmly believe that I'm correct. Nonetheless, as he pointed out, even though there are a lot of people unemployed, there's still a lot more that are employed. And he said, the one thing we do want to emphasize is the positive, which is that there are still jobs to be had, even though it's more difficult. And there are businesses that are still open. After all, not everybody has got closed signs on their front doors. But again, just something to be aware of in this economy. We are dealing with, of course, a higher unemployment, more schemes than I've seen in a while going on, more scams, more theft, more issues because of the economy. So going back to business scams, which we are talking about right now, I wanted to talk about some other scams that are targeting businesses, and especially small business owners need to be very aware of this because we small business owners don't have the same tools that the big boys have. Well, another one is valuation fraud, overpaid consultants. It's very easy. You're contacted by a company. Hey, we think we have a market. We might have a customer that's going to want to buy your business. Well, I mean, that sounds great, especially if you're a struggling business, right? You'd be like, man, that's awesome. Tell me more about this company. So they say, well, we need to really go in there and we need to evaluate your business. We need to figure out what's the value. We want to look at your books. We want to get to know your company before we can really be a matchmaking service. So why don't you let us come in there and analyze your business? And you're like, okay, that sounds good. They come in, they look at your books. Now, I mean, automatically, I'm going to tell you right now, you better know who these people are if you're going to have them having access to your bank account information, your books, everything else. But not only do they go in there and they analyze your business, but they charge you an arm and a leg to do it. And then when it's all over, they don't really have that buyer for you. So make sure you know who this business guy is. Make sure you know who your broker is. Make sure you've checked him out. He's got references. Don't let yourself get taken by something this simple. But again, it's just so easy when you're a business owner to trust somebody else. You're not necessarily going to be on the alert for a scam like you are as an individual consumer. And again, just be cautious. Check these people out if you're going to be working with them. And they better have somebody for you at the other end, or you could end up in a lawsuit. But again, a lawsuit is only as good as what the guy has. I mean, you can't get blood out of a stone. And if he's a really good con, he's going to just dry up and go away, and you won't be able to find him anyways. You just don't need to go through that. So avoid these things at all costs. Another one is directory or listing fraud. Well, everybody knows the Yellow Pages, but there are a lot of other wannabes out there, small-time guys who try to get you to advertise with them and promise that they have a much bigger audience than they have and charge you an arm and a leg, charge you something that maybe even the Yellow Pages wouldn't charge you, promising you the world and not delivering it. Or another interesting angle to this is the business owner who gets a bill that says it's from something that sounds very similar to the Yellow Pages. Maybe the logos even let your fingers do the walking, but it's not the Yellow Pages. You're being charged for something that you haven't signed up for, and maybe you get it confused. Maybe you think it is the Yellow Pages ad that you have, and you pay it again. Or maybe you really believe that this is not only the Yellow Pages, but maybe you think, my gosh, this is a bill I must have overlooked somehow. You pay it twice, and what you're really doing is you're paying this to somebody else. Now, there's also an interesting scam that's going on with mortgages, and in both business and with home mortgages. I just was made alert to the fact that there are some cons that are duplicating a mortgage company. Say your mortgage is with Citibank, so you get a bill in the mail, and it says, okay, we just bought your mortgage from Citibank. Our name is I don't know, let's make a Bougainvillea Bank. So no longer are you going to be sending your payments for your mortgage to Citibank. Your mortgage is now owned by Bougainvillea Bank, and it would be the same with a business mortgage as well. Please remit all payments in the future to Bougainvillea Bank. So you say, well, you don't think to call them on it. You write your next check to Bougainvillea Bank, and in a month, your mortgage company comes knocking on your door and says, hey, where's the mortgage payment? You say, well, what do you mean, where's the mortgage payment? I just sent it. And by the way, Bougainvillea Bank now is the holder of my mortgage, and Citibank will be like, no way. And you still owe us the money. And it's one of these things that has happened not only with mortgages, but of course can happen with companies. Don't let somebody send you a bill purporting to be the company that you do business with already without making sure that it really is that company. It's very easy to pay somebody the wrong amount of money or pay somebody for the wrong charges if they're purporting to be somebody you're already doing business with. And that happens with office products. There have been cases where somebody will call and say, hey, I'm with Staples, and we have this really good deal right now where paper is half price, but you got to get on it right now. You want to order some paper? How many reams can I put you down for? Okay, that'll be a total of this amount of money. Give me $1,000. Okay, give me your credit card number, and off they go. They've got your credit card number, they've got your money, and you never get the paper because they weren't with Office Depot or Staples to begin with. Go ahead, Mike.
I have this with toner cartridges.
Oh, really?
Yeah, reusable toner cartridges and everything like that. It's like, oh yeah, I was just talking with the owner, blah 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 blah, and she said, yeah, why don't you go ahead and we want to be your vendor, and we'll send you out some toner cartridges, and that's how they get you. They actually send you out a couple toner cartridges. All of a sudden, they're billing you for like $2,000 or $3,000 worth of merchandise that you really didn't want.
Right, and a lot of times it's because there's not a central person who's taking these orders, and that's where the problem comes in too. There should be one person assigned in the office for office supply purchases, and that should be it, because otherwise it's just too easy. The right hand does not know what the left hand is doing. Very, very good point indeed, Mike. And even then, it's just so easy to get scammed these days. It really is, because they're always coming up with something else. Go ahead.
Or what they'll do, they'll call somebody in the office and ask them what kind of copier we have there, and they'll just hang up.
Really?
And then they'll call me. Can I speak to the person in charge of your toner cartridges or anything? I'll answer the phone. Well, yes. This is actually, they'll actually say that they're from the copier company,
right? For
our copiers, and that's how they get in that way too.
Right. Same thing. It's scary how easy it is. There's also something called blue sky scams. And this one was new to me, where a company will tell you, hey, this is your golden opportunity. You can be a self-made entrepreneur. All you have to do is buy some vending machines from us, and we will even install them for you. We know some of the best places to put them. Once you've invested the initial amount, then we'll keep them stocked for you, and you'll make a nice tidy profit when it's all over. Well, if you go along with it, you may end up paying a lot more than what the vending machines actually are worth. They don't have the premises lined up. They won't have anybody who is willing to take those vending machines, and you will be sitting on a lot of very overpaid, I guess undervalued merchandise for a very long time. One woman actually was able to turn it into a business. She got suckered initially in a blue sky scam like that. But what she did is she then took possession of those vending machines, and she went out and she knocked door to door until she found people willing to take the vending machines. She stocked them herself and ended up making a good business out of it. But not many people can make that kind of lemonade out of lemons. So it's one of those things also to avoid. Plus, she admits she paid way, way more than she should have initially paid for those vending machines. So be aware very much of the market. Be aware of the company and know what you are paying for. Don't get suckered. Sometimes it's very easy to get pulled into that. Credit machine scams. Boy, I tell you, I was suckered with that one. I got suckered with this credit machine scam. There was a woman who was coming into my hair salon. Beautiful woman. Very expensive hair, which was, done eventually at my salon. And so I can tell you it was very expensive hair. And she was in sales, and she was representing one of those classic credit card machine companies. And they're a dime a dozen out there. You pretty much have to sell your soul if you want to sell the stuff, because it's borderline crooked. A lot of it is. Not all of it. But there are a lot of credit card machine scams. And so they came in and they worked up these numbers. And I was ignorant at the time. This was years ago. I'm not as ignorant as I used to be. Sometimes the school of hard knocks will teach you a few things. And the figures she worked up for me, they looked good. I thought, okay, yeah, I'll save a little money by going with this credit card company the first year. And after that, I'll be saving a lot more money than the current system I have. So I agreed. And in the process, I had to buy new equipment that they wanted. I had to sign up with a different service. And I was dumb enough to sign a personal guarantee. And all of a sudden, I was getting hit left and right with all these charges. Plus, the price that I paid for that credit card machine equipment, let me tell you how amazingly valuable that stuff was. I was recently cleaning out my closet, and when I saw it, it went straight into the garbage. Not really quality stuff, but I paid out the nose for it. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, if you want to, change credit card vendors or do anything like that, probably the best place to start is your bank.
Right,
it gets
exactly.
Talk to their merchant services. They know exactly how much you should have to pay for any type of point of sale credit card swipers or anything like that.
That's what you should do. Do not, no matter how pleasing or intelligent or personable that person can be, do not just talk to the average guy off the street and go for the slick sales talk. Trust me on this one, because I've been there and I've suffered through it. Make sure that you don't want to just please somebody who's your customer, any more than you'd have a customer come in and try to sell you on the latest multi-level marketing scam. Don't buy into the credit card scam either. Even if they come from a group that swears up and down they can save you money, be very cautious. And as Mike says, your bank is the best source for this. Your bank is the one to go to and check it out. Now, sometimes a bank will charge you an arm and a leg. I'll admit that. And there might be some good credit card processing groups out there. But I know a lot of crooked ones. So be cautious. Be very cautious. Here's something else to worry about: your advertising dollars. Don't just buy advertising from the slick Rick who comes in there and tells you that he can promote your business far and wide, who says he can design something, maybe put together a website package for you and design your logo and put together your business cards and charge you an arm and a leg. Go ahead, Mike.
The big one is search engine optimization.
Oh, yeah.
I must get a half a dozen emails a day. All these companies, oh yeah, we'll put you right on top of Google and blah 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 blah. They're out there and they're all sharks.
Especially since a lot of it's illegal, correct? I mean, at least it goes against Google's laws of service. And so at that point, if you're doing the wrong thing with Google, they may end up not even allowing you near the top of the search. They're very fussy about that kind of thing. Google does not like being manipulated.
Well, also too, just basically how Google works. Google works more, from what I understand, it works more on how often your name or your site is referenced by other websites.
Showing
that's how they rank you.
It's got validity. Exactly. Yeah, and if you play a lot of tricks, more power to you. If you are able to get around Google, I'd try it too. But if it comes down to legality, which is something a little more that I'm not too clear on, but I've read some things saying that there might be legality issues, but perhaps it's more than anything just a term of service issue with Google, where Google will definitely not be happy with you, and you may end up suffering as a result of it. You don't want to be branded as spam. Believe me, you don't want to be branded as spam. So, but when it comes down to marketing materials too, be careful who you hire, because it's very easy to promise you the world and then give you substandard marketing materials materials and demand a large, hefty fee for them. So be careful of who you do business with when it comes to advertising materials. And if they are telling you that they have a certain listenership or readership, get the statistics, look at them before you make that choice. Don't pay a full price up front either for their services. Wait until you see what they can produce before you pay incomplete. I'd love to again tell you that people always intend the best, but be cautious when you're doing business with somebody. Don't be a jerk. Don't criticize something, especially if you've already approved it. But ask for the proofs first and give the approval, and then expect to see quality work. But if they make a mistake, you deserve to have your money paid back to you in full. Well, we're going to go ahead and take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a few more scams to be on the alert for. This is Dr. Drake with the Business Edge. We'll be back in about 5.
Dr. Freda Drake.
And this is Dr. Drake. We are talking about business scams targeted at business owners. One of the things that I wanted to touch base on very quickly was the point of sale scams. Everybody's heard about these quick change artists, and I could talk forever about how they can scam you out of money. But the number one thing, if you have a retail business of any type, is when you take some cash from somebody, make sure you put it on the top of the register while you are making change. Hand them the change, and then put the cash back in the register, because as our producer Mike had pointed out during the break, that is so common. It's very prevalent, and it's so easy to do, especially with somebody who's young and inexperienced. And let's face it, most people in the retail arena, that could be their first job, and they're already nervous as a cat. They are going to be very easily confused when a customer says, "Oh, here's a $50. Oh, no, wait a minute. Let me give you a $20. No, wait. You know what? That's right. I don't have enough change. Let me give you the $50 again." In the meantime, they're switching things around, and all of a sudden you find that you've been shorted $30. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, I fell into that one myself. I worked graveyard shift when I was in college at a convenience store, and had some guy come in, and he gave me a $50, and he just started going and going and going, and I said, well, wait a minute. He started yelling at me, so he got really, really aggressive, and a lot of times the intimidation and everything like that. He walked out of there. He got away with $50.
Yeah, there you go. And it reminds me of a situation when I was a retail manager at Burdines, which was bought out by Macy's eventually, but it was, in my opinion, even better than Macy's, a very nice high-end retail store. And I had 3 departments, and we had just had a talk about the checks. We had at the time our check machines, which often did automatic verification, were going down regularly. And a lot of people were just taking the checks and running them through afterwards because they were going down, and it was such a nuisance to wait that they were just taking the checks, trusting the customer, and letting the customer go on their way. Well, we had just had a huge lecture, and so I went back to my floor, and I gathered my associates around, and I said, okay, people, from now on, we accept no checks under any circumstances without them going through the check machine first. Oh, there was complaints. Oh, well, what if a customer gets mad and walks away? Then a customer gets mad. You are not going to do it. Do you understand? And I had a couple people arguing. I finally said, people, which wasn't diplomatic, but remember, I was very young at the time. People, this is not a democracy. It's a dictatorship. I am telling you, you will not accept checks without them going through the check machine, period. End of statement. A lot of grumbling. Well, about a week later, one of my girls called me and said, "Hey, Freda, there's a woman here, and she has an amazing story. She is a millionaire. She just won the lottery, and she is trying to cash something, but the check won't go through. It's been denied, and I don't understand why." I'm like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yeah, okay." I said, "You know what? I'm going to come out there right now. I'm going to meet this millionaire." So I came out onto the floor, and here's this woman, and she was very scraggly looking, very unhealthy looking, and she was accompanied by an equally unhealthy looking entourage. Some of them had summer teeth. Do you know what summer teeth are? Summer teeth are where some are in the nightstand and some are in her head. Well, she had summer teeth. She was missing about half of her teeth, and that was the key here, is that she was telling everybody that she had lost a lot of her teeth, but because now she was a millionaire, she was about to go get great dental care. She was about to go to the dentist. She was going to have all this done, and she was going to get facial surgery now that she was a millionaire and she had won all this money. She was just, she had everything lined up. She was a lot of talk. Well, whenever anybody's that much talk, of course, you have something to be suspicious about. And so, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just going to say, let me guess, she won the Internet Nigerian Lottery, right?
Yeah, close. So it turned out when I did a little D, I'm like, well, that's fabulous. You won the lottery. How exciting. Oh, yes, she said, and she had all these marvelous plans. She was talking, of course, about the dentist. And that's when my girl piped up and said, oh, yeah, she's been all around downstairs and cash checks, no problems. And now she's up here, but for some reason the bank won't take it. And I said, well, you know what? It's possible that maybe it's just she's paying a little bit too much right now, and it's just sending up flags at the bank. I said, I'll go call my security people and get this okayed, and I'll be right back. Can I have that check, please? Oh, thank you very much. So I went back to my office, and I made a call to the bank. And I said, what is going on with these checks? And they said, don't cash it. We can't authorize that. And I said, well, why? Well, we can't tell you. I said, really? No, we can't tell you. So I said, okay, well, can you tell me this? I mean, is there any money in that bank account? No, ma'am. Okay, thanks. That's all I need to know. So obviously, there was something going on. And so I went back and I said, I called the security and I said, meet me out here. And I told them what was going on. So they came out there, they arrested the woman, they hauled her off. And it turned out what happened is this woman had been writing bad checks downstairs and none of them had been approved, despite what she had claimed. But yes, she had tons and tons of merchandise because all of the people downstairs had been snowed by the millionaire story. She was good. It was convincing this poor, sweet little woman who had no teeth in her head, and she was going around telling everybody how marvelous it was that she just became a millionaire. And, oh, gee, that check didn't go through. Well, I'm sure it'll go through in a minute. And the salespeople were like, well, just let her go on. Of course it'll go through. And she had made her way. She had done her rounds. And she had thousands and thousands of dollars of merchandise in her bag that really weren't paid for and would not be paid for. So finally, she was hauled off to the pokey and spent some time in prison as a result of it.
That's okay, because I think prison has a really good dental program.
I certainly hope so, because she did have summer teeth. So she was, of course, a classic example of things that can happen. And perhaps I saw through it. And really, should I be getting all the praise and all the kudos? No. I just happen to be more suspicious than most, perhaps. But a lot of people would have seen through it. It was a time, though, where I think people were a little more gullible than they are now. And again, she talked a good game. Sometimes you see through the cons and sometimes you don't. I got lucky with that one. But I might not have. She might have gotten out with all the merchandise. And I'll tell you what, heads would have rolled. Heads really rolled anyways. The company was not happy about the fact that they got to pass all the way downstairs in all the departments they went to. But I tell you what, it was one of those things where it could have gone either way. If I hadn't been on duty, maybe she would have gotten away with it again. I don't know. But these things happen all the time, and you got to watch out for the games. You got to be suspicious. You got to look at things twice. Sometimes you can get taken to when it comes to cramming. Cramming is a classic one where they call you and you accidentally authorize them to give you extra charges for something that you've purchased, or perhaps you think they're with a phone company and they're not, and you agree to additional charges that are now showing up on your bill. So you have to be cautious of that. And you also have to be cautious of something that Mike brought up today too. One thing that Mike was talking about is that there are always new laws on the books. And you could certainly be in the middle of something you don't want to be in if you are not PCI compliant. So, Mike, you want to talk a little bit about PCI compliance?
Yeah, it's basically, I think it was a law that actually went into effect in 2010 in regards to credit card compliance. Mm-hmm. And now businesses, if you have software, I'm not quite sure how it's done on paper or anything like that, but if you have computer software that stores credit card numbers, mm-hmm. you no longer can do that.
You can only store like the last 4 digits of their number, right?
Yes. What the last 4 digits, just for reference, because I'm sure the last few years everybody's heard about big department stores, mm-hmm. Their software being hacked,
right?
And thousands of credit card numbers are all of a sudden in the hands of hackers,
right? Or even employees who keep copies of the statements.
Absolutely.
And they know the number, they know the code, they've seen the card. and employees can make off with your customers' identity and their information.
Right. And so if you are storing still credit card numbers, full credit card numbers in your computer software, you are in violation and can be slapped with very, very hefty fines. What you want to do is talk to your credit card processor.
Make sure you're up on the latest.
Well, also too, what's happening is what we use is actually it's called a payment gateway. And what will happen is that it needs that the payment gateway actually has to have third-party software that interacts with your software. And what your software will do is it will go into the payment gateway. It will take that credit card number that you initially put in there, because a lot of times you'll keep. You want to keep customer credit cards on file, especially recurring customers that you do a lot of stuff over the phone for accounts receivable. And what you'll do is actually you'll send that up to the payment gateway, and they'll store it because they're a PCI compliant certified company to do so. And what they'll do is send back to your software an access token. So every time you make a charge on that credit card, the token gets sent through the wire to the payment gateway. Payment gateway then references the credit card number. The credit card then goes off to the credit card processor for approval or for authorization, basically, and it kind of goes back,
Right, another level of protection for the customer.
Yes.
Again, just something for a business owner to be very cautious of, because somebody can hack into your system, or your employees, I'm sad to say, could take advantage of the information and use it illegally, and you are going to be on the hook for that. So it's a frightening situation nowadays. If you're not in compliance and all of a sudden something like that comes back and bites you, you could be out a tremendous amount of money. The government has some stupendously high fines if you are not PCI compliant.
One of the big scams now, and especially going on in restaurants, the pocket swipers. What a waiter will do.
Yes.
What a waiter will do, take the credit card, walk down there, in the pocket, a little swiper, run the credit card and all that stuff. All of a sudden, he has the credit card number, everything.
Absolutely true. And that's scary. Very, very scary. It's just too easy to lose your identity these days. So, of course, you also might want to consider perhaps putting your name under LifeLock or one of those other services. But the problem with LifeLock, along with a lot of other services, is that they are limited in what they will pay out. And if you are a business owner, maybe $1 million is not enough protection for you. So shop around if you want one of those protection type services. Another thing dealing with money is loan scams. It's just so easy to be approached or get a letter in the mail. Hey, we want to offer you credit. We want to offer you a loan. And a lot of business owners are suffering, and they don't have good credit at this time. So that just seems like a marvelous thing. How great that there's a company that still wants to invest in your company. So it's very easy to get suckered into these loan scams where maybe you have to pay a fee in advance to be cleared, and then the loan never materializes, and you're out this additional money. There's something else, a PBX phone scam, where your business receives a call from someone who asked the receptionist to dial 90# to test a problem with the phone line. And your receptionist, again, bless her heart, is probably not at the top of her game. She's probably young. She's just starting out. She doesn't think to look for these scams. She doesn't know about this scam. And so she agreeably wants to help out, and she hits the 90# sign. And now that person who called in has complete access to your phone lines and can make long-distance calls on your phone line, running up your phone bill, and pocket the change. Also, employees, of course, can be running up your phone bill too. So again, be careful if you have long-distance access and you don't want your employees to be able to call anywhere in the country. Be sure that you have some security steps involved where they have to perhaps put in a code if they're going to do a long distance dialing, or there is a log. Check your phone bills every single month. Make sure you know where those phone calls are going. Sometimes too, you can get taken in by a prize promotion. There's a company that will sell you, say, a new computer system, and if you buy from them, you get a free vacation to the Bahamas. though the prize might not materialize, or it might not be what it was purported to be, or you're going to get substandard equipment. So my best advice is don't get suckered in by any prizes or any kind of incentives. Just do some price shopping, look around, and buy for what it is. Don't get distracted by all the bells and whistles. Go ahead, Mike.
I always love the ones when they call you, just a cold call, and it sounds like they are reading off of a cue card. We have a deal for you. If you stop if you buy this from right now, we can promise you $1 million in gifts.
And they never shut up long enough for you to go, hey, I'm not interested. You almost feel like you have to hang up on them. They don't take a breath. My biggest pet peeve with these companies is calling me Miss Drake. Well, I'm married. So either I'm a Mrs. or I'm Doctor, but I'm certainly not a Miss. And you know what I would prefer? If you don't know what to call me Ms. Call me Ms. Oh, gee, is it so hard to say Ms? Are we really that far out of the women's liberation movement that we don't remember that Ms. is a universal designation for a woman like Mr. is for a man? When a man gets married, he's not Mr.'s. He's still Mr. He's Mr. whether he's single. He's Mr. whether he's married. If he's a doctor, he's doctor. But you know what? I'd be far less insulted if you would call me Ms. But I tell you what, I have to grit my teeth every time they say, well, thank you, Miss Drake. Thank you, Miss Drake. Well, what about this, Miss Drake? Stop using my name in vain. I am Drake. I am definitely a Drake, but there is no Miss attached to my name. It drives me nuts. So do caution your salespeople to be a little more careful about how they address their clients. Maybe people are not as sensitive as I am, but not every woman is a mess. Okay? Well, this is Dr. Drake with The Business Edge. Thank you so very much for joining us on The Business Edge tonight. It's been wonderful having you. I wish you the very best week, and I will see you next Monday here on The Business Edge on 1340.